What's up guys, Dylan here, and welcome back to day 2 of the Advent of Code 2020 challenge. So, in this video, I'm going to walk through my solution for day 2 of Advent of Code 2020 using Python. So, let's get into it. So, let's go ahead and read the prompt here. So, looks like our flight departs in a few days, and we've got to take toboggan, that's kind of sled. But the rental shop can't get into the computer, so we're going to take a look, and it looks like we've got some corrupted passwords. Okay, so we're going to get an input of a list of passwords, and we have to determine which passwords are corrupt or not, it looks like. So we're going to be getting, let's see, so this gives us, each line gives the password policy, and then the password policy indicates the lowest and highest number. So if it says 1 to 3 and then A, then that means A must appear in this password either 1, 2, or 3 times. Or C must appear in this password either 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Okay, so we're just going to be checking that this character appears the correct amount of times in the password string. And we're going to see how many passwords are valid. Okay, so let's get our input. And oh my goodness gracious, that's a lot. So we're going to go ahead and copy all of these values. Just like so, Control C. And once again, I'm going to make a new file. And this time, I'm going, instead of making it I'm going to call it input2. But instead of .txt, I'm going to use .csv. And now normally, CSV stands for comma separated values. And it would be used for a list like this where you have value 1, value 2, value 3 in columns like this, but they'd be separated by commas like this. But we can use the CSV library in Python and change, instead of to use commas, to use spaces, and that'll give us the data that we want nice and easily. So let's go ahead and save that file. And the first thing we got to do is import CSV, and I'll explain the steps that I use with the CSV library as we go through here. So let's call this part 1. And we will say, so first we've got to open the CSV file with open input2.csv as data. And then with the CSV, in order to get our list of lines, we need to create a reader object. So we're just going to say reader is equal to csv.reader. And we'll read the data file, and we're just going to tell it that our delimiter, that would be like the comma normally, so that the delimiter is what separates the values, and is going to be equal to the space character instead of the comma character, which it is by default. So then if we go and we say, we can just see our data here for row and reader, we can print the row, and this should give us a list of values. So if we run that, you can see we got a whole long list of values. But so each row is a list, and each entry in the list is a piece of data that we want. So the first thing that we got to do is for each row here, we need to get out, I guess you could call this, say, a quota, because it needs to be a certain amount, a letter, and a password. So we will call quota and letter and password are equal to row, the first element, row, the second element, and we need to be careful here because technically that is the letter and the colon character here. So we are just going to take the first character in that string. So row 1 gives us the string, for example, D colon, and if we just take the 0th character, we'll just get the D. And then we will take the row 2. And you can see if we print the quota, letter, and password, we should get some very similar looking data, except not in list form anymore, it's in variables. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the range for the quota, because right now it's just in a string form of 1, 4. So first thing that we should do, and because we have a string in the format a minus b, we just want to get the a and b values, is we should find the index of the dash character. So we'll just say I is equal to quota dot index, and you don't technically have to make this I variable, but it just makes some less typing later on. And then we'll call the lower number is going to be equal lower to quota, and we're just going to splice that string. So we just want everything from the beginning of the string until the quota index. So that'll give us everything from the first character up to the character before the dash, and then the upper will be everything in quota. We want it from the dash and one after. So we don't want to include the dash, we want the one after, and go to the end. And then we can check by saying print quota, lower and upper. And if we run that, we can now see 4-6, we get 4 and 6, 3-6, 3 and 6. Good. So moving right along here, now we need to just check each password. And so we can say, well, we need to count the number of times that the letter appears in the password. So we can say count is equal to 0. And then for character in password, so this will look at each character in the password. We can say if character is equal to letter, then count is incremented by 1. And then, so once we get the count of how many times the letter appears, we'll just say if count is greater than or equal to the lower bound, or count is less than or equal to the upper bound. Well, let's make a valid count variable. So this will just keep track of how many valid passwords we found, and we will increase valid count by 1. And then that should give us the answer, I'm hoping. So if we print, increase that by 1. So if we print valid count, stupid add, we have an error. What would that be? Oh, I know what's going on. We forgot to make our lower numbers ints. So we want the lower and the upper to be int. That way we can compare them. And if we run that, we get 1000. So let's go ahead and check if it's right. And that's not the right answer. And silly me, I realized what was wrong here in this if statement. This should be an and, because we want it to be between the two numbers. So if we run that again, we get our answer as 603. So let's go ahead and try that. And we got the right answer, second try. So let's continue to part 2. All right, part 2. While it appears we validated the passwords correctly, it's still not accepting our passwords. Oh, we got the wrong password rules. And so the range actually describes 2 positions in the password, where 1 means the first character, 2 means the second character. So they don't have a concept of index 0. Exactly one of these positions must contain the given letter. So if it's in neither of the positions, or if it's in both the positions, it's invalid. But if it's in only one of them exactly, then it is valid. So how many passwords are valid? Okay, so let's go ahead and copy all of our stuff from up there. And we're going to go on to part 2. So we're still going to read the CSV, still going to have our valid count. We still need quota, letter, and password. But what I think we're going to change is we're just going to say, okay, I think I got it. So we're just going to say count is equal to 0 to start. And then we need to check basically if the index of the index of this first number is and the index of the second number, if they match the letter or not. And so we're going to be typing that a bunch of times, and it's kind of long, so I'm just going to put them into their own Boolean expressions. So we'll just call first for the lower one. So first is going to be equal to the Boolean expression. Let's see, password, and we just want the character, and we're going to do lower -1, because remember, if this is like the number 1, we actually want the 0th character, because they don't have a concept of position 0. And we're going to check that that's equal to letter. So this will either be true or false. And then last is going to equal to upper password, upper -1 again for the offset. And we're going to say if the first character is equal to the letter and the second one is not, and last is not, or last and not first. So this just means this will only evaluate the true if one of them is equal to the letter and the other is not. If they're both equal to the letter or neither of them are equal to the letter, it will not evaluate the true. And we'll say valid count plus equals to 1. And if we run that once again, let's go ahead and try number 404. And we've completed the puzzle. So there you have it. There was a solution for day 2 of Advent of Code in Python. If you like the solution, please drop a like, and I'll see you back tomorrow for day 3.